kind of like smaller town feel. So our big time, like big dream goal would be to get to Oklahoma and start our own operation there. But for right now, we're just going to stay at the ranch, help where we can, and that's what we're going to do right now.
You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Welcome to The Ride, a bi-weekly podcast brought to you by Horse and Rider Magazine, co-hosted by Nicole Cherico and Devin Conley. In each episode, we chat with some of the industry's top trainers, clinicians, horsekeeping experts, and professionals to share inspiring stories, training philosophies, and the importance of living your best Western horse life.
On this episode of the Ride podcast, we are joined by Allison Wiens. You might know her from social media, but her and her husband ranch in Colorado, and she's well known for her humor, Western fashion, and agricultural content. We talked to Allison about her social media journey, her start in the cutting industry, and her and her husband's agricultural ventures. This episode is brought to you by My New Horse. For first-time horse owners and new riders just starting out, finding the information and support you need can be challenging. That's why the Equine Network has partnered with Sentinel and Absorbine to bring you My New Horse, a place where equestrians just getting into horse ownership or riding will find the resources and community they need at precisely their stage of the equine journey. From important horsekeeping information and how-to videos to social media communities, exclusive experiences, and more, My New Horse is your one-stop shop for riders of all levels and disciplines who are eager to find easy-to-understand horse care information and guidance. Start your horse ownership journey today. Visit mynewhorse.com. Welcome back to another episode of the Ride podcast. I'm Devin Conley, and today I am joined with Allison Wiens. Allison is joining us today from Colorado, where her and her husband ranch, and you might know her from social media, where she's pretty well known for her hilarious humor, her Western fashion, her agriculture content, and kind of sharing her life as a rancher and a rider and just a really cool person in the Western space. So Allison, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Really glad that you're here. I love your social media page. Like I'll go to your Instagram just when I need like a good laugh and
same ditto. I go to yours as well. I love going awesome. Just binge watching.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm like, ooh, what's Allison? What has Allison posted? Like,
yes, I love it. Same.
I gotta go check her out. Yeah. So, for our friends that are listening that maybe aren't, they don't use social media or like are on a different, whatever they say, algorithm. Can you just start with a little introduction? Just tell us kind of who you are, a little background on you. Did you grow up in the horse industry? Just kind of fill us in if you would.
Okay, so my name is Allison, and me and my husband, Travis, we live on his family ranch in Sedalia, Colorado. We have lived here for 12 years. Travis has lived here his entire life, but we have lived here as a couple for the past 12 years. I did not grow up in the ag industry, horse industry, nothing. My introduction into ag would probably be through my uncle and aunt. They had a ranch up in Wheatland, Wyoming, and it's called the Muleshoe Ranch. And so we would go up there and we would go brand and help them calve, but we never I never grew up in the industry. I grew up in Fort Collins, Colorado, in the suburbs. So this lifestyle was very new to me, but I immediately fell in love with it. I love this lifestyle. But yeah, so that's a little bit about us. We have a ranch, like I said, in Sedalia, Colorado. We have a direct consumer beef industry, or direct consumer beef business. And we also have a cutting operation as well at the ranch. So we do a little bit of horse, a little bit of cow, but that's primarily what the ranch does.
And it is a beautiful ranch. I got to go down there a few months ago, like the Wiens Ranch, right? And It's incredible. I mean, if you guys that are listening have never been to Sedalia, it is beautiful country down there.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of unique because we're only 25 minutes from town. So it feels like we're in the middle of nowhere, but then we can just drive into town and it's right there. So we're far enough away to not have to deal with the city life, but we're also close enough where we can just run into the grocery store and run back.
It's the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
And so, on some of your reels and like your social media posts, you have like videos of you riding and working in the pin or working the flag and
Yeah.
things like that. So are you competing, or like have you started in the cutting or the cow horse or anything like that?
Yeah, so it kind of was very much not meant to be. We weren't planning on being involved in the cutting operation. That was mostly primarily for my father-in-law because, so to go back, my husband's family, they started they got involved in the cutting horse business 30 years ago. My father-in-law found the smart look. And so he was actually the one who kind of, that kind of skyrocketed the cutting operation on the ranch. So at one point they had 75 horses here, 25 under saddle and training. It was just a crazy business. And then the cutting world kind of dwindled out in Colorado. It just kind of stopped. And so they kind of took a break. They took a step back. That's when we got into the beef business. And now my father-in-law wants to get back into the cutting business. So we were out gathering cattle one day, and I was on Lookin, who is he is cutting bred and trained, but he's actually never shown.
Okay.
And so anyway, so we were out gathering cattle, and we came back to the barn, and they had just set up the flag. And for everyone who doesn't know what the flag is, it's like a tool that we train the horses with. So it's like a fake cow, and the horses track this fake cow, and that's how they practice. But anyways, so we got back to the barn, and they had just set up the flag. And so I said to Travis, I said, well, I just want to see if Lookin still remembers the flag or what to do with the flag. And so Travis zipped the flag back and forth a couple times, and Lookin went straight back to it, just cutting away. And so I was like, well, this is kind of cool. So we took a 22-year-old horse and now that's my show horse. And so I've only been doing it for 3 months, but that's my show horse. And so we have gotten back into it with my father and my mother-in-law and our trainers and everything like that. So that's kind of what happened with that. But I wasn't supposed to be showing or anything. I had never planned on it. I never really actually even wanted to. But then I did my first show, and I was like, this is actually really fun. Yeah. So it's addicting. I can see why people like the sport.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like cutting is really kind of in the spotlight right now, right? Because like Bella Hadid is cutting, and like Bella and Adon are in New York on the streets of New York cutting, and like people are like, whoa, this is really cool. So like cutting's kind of having a not that it ever died out, but like it's having its moment for sure in the spotlight.
For sure. Yeah. It's like very like cutting era right now, where it is getting a little bit more attention than it ever has before.
Right.
Which is cool. It's awesome to watch it.
Oh, absolutely. And so like you've done your first show. Was that your first ever show?
Yeah, we hosted a cutting here on the 4th of July.
Oh, fun.
And so that was my first cutting ever, and I was nervous as all get out. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so since then, I think we've done 4 or 5 different shows now. So yeah, it's a trip. It's a ride. I mean, I'm just here to have fun with Lookin. So that's what we're here for.
That's right. Like at the end of the day, it's supposed to be fun, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. If it's not fun, then why are you doing it? I mean, it's really frustrating too. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Or like, cause there's so many rules in it. Like that was another thing is people I think a lot of people see it and they go, oh, well, you just have to hold on and the horse does it all. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many rules. There's so many different things that you have to be thinking about when you're doing it. So anyways.
Absolutely. Like, I think folks especially see cutting and they're like, oh, you're just sitting there.
Literally.
No, sir.
Yeah. No, that's actually the last thing that you're doing is just sitting there. There's so much going on in your brain and in your body and what you're doing with your feet and all this stuff. So yeah.
Well, that's really cool that you're like getting into, the show world and starting to compete a little bit. And
yeah, no plan to do it, but here we go.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, I guess we're doing this now. Like, I guess I bought a cow horse, like a working cow horse filly, like a few months ago. I was like, I guess I'm going to try this now.
Here we go. Yeah, I know. And that's what's so fun about it though, is like the horses are they're so adaptable, and they do have so many different skills that it is kind of fun as a rider to be like, well, what should we do now? You can just, I want to do barrels. Okay, go do barrels. You just got to find whatever you love and do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And so, you were saying that like you hadn't grown up in agriculture or ranching or in the Western industry. What was that like for you to kind of transition into that life? Did you find like anything that you really struggled with, or did you find it easy to transition into? Guys, I feel like, again, like with cutting, like the Western lifestyle is having its moment right now in the spotlight for sure, and which is awesome. And I feel like a lot of people look at that and they're like, man, I didn't grow up that way. Could I ever make it in that industry? So yeah, what do you have to say kind of about making that transition?
Yeah, it was for sure a transition. How it happened was Travis's parents, they were like in transition between ranch hands. And I was in transition between jobs. And so Travis would come out to the ranch anyways, because him and his dad did a lot of business stuff together. And so I would come out to the range with Travis, and I would just start helping out wherever I could, whether that was cleaning stalls or, dragging the arena, fixing fence, whatever I could do. I just kind of just started helping out.
Sure.
And so the transition was slow, but I don't know how to say this. It felt accelerated, but it was just kind of like easy. It was it felt like normal life. And so I would ride 5 or 6 horses a day. That's kind of how I got into horse riding, just because I needed these horses to get, to stay legged up. And so I would just hop on a horse, and that was my experience, was just learn. The thing that caught me so off guard about this lifestyle is, I would say, it is very lonely. So you are out doing a lot of these chores or the ranch work by yourself. And so you do kind of get, it is very secluded. And so I think that's what sparked my starting in social media, was because I felt like I needed an outlet, not necessarily to talk to somebody, but like I wanted to have connection.
Yeah, definitely.
And so and I wanted to be creative. And so at that point, Instagram was a great outlet to be creative. And so that's kind of how I started with Instagram, was, I guess, through my loneliness, just talking to my phone made me feel less lonely.
I get that.
So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So when people come up and they say hi, I follow you, I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes it so real life. Because otherwise it's just me talking to my phone.
Right.
So I'm glad that people are actually out there watching, and then they say, oh my gosh, I really, like this about you. I'm like, oh my gosh, they are watching. That's cool. So there is connection.
Absolutely.
But I would say that, I would say that the being alone by yourself is kind of jarring, because, a lot of people go to an office job. You have work meetings, you have all that kind of stuff, or you have, lunch meetings. But with ranch life, you don't really have that. It's very much by yourself, or with your spouse, or with a couple ranch hands. And that's pretty much your exposure to the world. But at the same time, I'm really not a people person. I kind of like being around animals more than people. So it was well, this is kind of enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I get what you're saying there. It is, like you said, a little more secluded, and you have to kind of be pretty self-sufficient and comfortable with your own company.
Exactly. Yeah. Comfortable with your own thoughts. You get very comfortable with, just with whatever you're thinking. But that's why podcasts and music and all that kind of stuff comes in handy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And so what's something that you found kind of in either the ranching industry or now cutting or the horse industry that's the most fulfilling to you? What do you really love the most about it?
I think that there's something to do every single day. You never can just wake up and be like, gosh, everything's taken care of. I have nothing to do.
Right. The work is never done.
Yeah. There's nothing that you're ever completely finished with, which I think is so rewarding, because I think in this day and age now, so more than ever, we're so used to, just having everything at our fingertips. So everything is we get satisfaction right away, as opposed to working and being rewarded through hard work and then seeing the satisfaction. I don't know. I really like that there's always something to do, that, like I said, it's never just easy. You just never wake up and you're like, gosh, I just can sit back and relax and do nothing today. It's like, no, the animals always have to be fed, and there's always fence that needs to be fixed, and there's always barns, stalls that need to be mucked. So it's always something.
Yeah, the work is never done, and it's like it's variety. Like we
Yeah.
do something a little different each
Yeah, it
day.
keeps your mind busy. I love also too that there's always something to learn. Going into the beef industry, that was really a big, huge step in learning. And I think that there's always something to be learned. So I think that the knowledge part of it, there's always something, like I keep saying, there's always something to learn, but that's so true.
Oh, very much so. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you just mentioned like the beef industry. So you guys do direct to consumer beef sales. That can't be easy, right? Like I'm sure that there's been some growing pains starting that up, which it's such a cool model. Can you just kind of talk a little bit on like the model, and then any obstacles you guys have encountered as you're building this out?
Yeah, sure. So we do, So like you mentioned, we have a direct consumer beef business. We have our cattle with us. What we say is from cradle to table. So the cattle are born on the ranch. We take them, we grow them and raise them all the way up until they're yearlings. And then around like 16, 16 months old, we finish them out for 4 months, and then we slaughter them.
Okay.
So they're with us, like I said, from the day that they are born until the day that they pass.
Yeah.
So that is something that we are very proud about, and that we are very we're passionate about it too, because it is, like you mentioned, a ton of work. I would say more so, it's kind of crazy. People don't know where to find beef around them. Like they're so used to going to the grocery store that I don't think people actually know how to find or to source beef around them. And so that has been a major obstacle course that we've had to work through, is marketing. That has been by far the hardest thing that we've had to do, because like I said, I don't think that people know like how to Google it. I mean,
Sure.
we didn't. Well, like when we
Right.
first started, I was like, how do we get the word out that we are a beef provider? So that's been something that we've had to work a lot through and around and everything. But
Oh, I could see that. Yeah. And that's where like social media is a great thing. And, you, like you said, there is connection, like there really is connection. And it's, especially I feel like in the Western space, in the horse industry, it's a very genuine connection. Like,
yes,
so many of us have made real life friends and met people like you, like I've met you through social media, and that's very cool.
Yeah, it is. It's very cool. And I think just the people, like, I do think that consumers are very curious. They're very curious about where their beef comes from. They're very curious about the Western industry. Like there's just so, like, again, because of the whatever it was, whether it was Yellowstone,
right,
or whatever has taken off with the Western industry. I think people are so curious about our lifestyle, and I think social media is such a fun place where we can have a platform for it to show it in a light that it is. It's not always rainbows and butterflies, but there are elements of that we can highlight, and then we also can highlight the bad parts of saying, like, this is how we handle this, to make it so it's a little bit more realistic. It makes it more human.
Absolutely. And I'm sure with like the direct to, consumer beef business, that transparency is really valued by your customers.
Yeah. And I do think that people really do like and enjoy to see how cattle are treated, because I think that there's this, however they're getting their thoughts or their information, that there's this harshness around ranchers. And so I think to show the humane side of it and the compassionate side of it is also very helpful for them to understand that these animals are our life. Like, we don't want them to suffer. We don't want them to die, these horrible deaths that people sometimes think that they do. And so I think that to be able to talk about it and be so transparent around whether it's an animal getting sick, or around like talking about them when they go to the slaughterhouse, to talk through those events is really helpful for consumers to understand that we're doing the best that we possibly can for these animals, because they really do mean so much to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, social media is such a great place to share that and like share little bits of the Western life with people that don't get to, they're watching from their apartment in New York or
Yeah.
Chicago or wherever.
Yeah.
And how cool is that? And
It
so
is.
like, yeah, you'll share, clips of like you guys out ranching or moving cattle or something like that. What who's your go-to ranch horse? Like we all know, I grew up in the ranching industry. I live on a ranch, and like we all know a good ranch horse is just worth their weight in gold. So who's your go-to right now?
It's so true. So my horse, Easy, she is probably my go-to mount. Before I had Easy, I would always go with Petty. Petty was my other go-to horse, but she's a turned-back pony now. So I don't ever get to ride her anymore. I miss her. But yeah, so I would say Easy is my go-to, and then Travis's horse, Pistol. He was born and raised here on the ranch, and I actually halter broke and saddle broke him.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's really cool, because that was another project that I was like, well, maybe I'll just try and see what happens.
Right.
He was out in pasture till he was about a 2-year-old. And I asked my mother-in-law, I said, can I try and train him? And she's like, that ugly thing? He was like the ugliest. We call him the ugly duckling, because he really was an ugly little foal. But he's so that's Travis's horse, and I love him a lot too. But those are our go-tos.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh man. And like, this is just a fun question, just out of curiosity, because we all love talking about tack, right, and gear. But what's your like favorite daily piece of tack or gear that you use that like you don't want to go without it, or whether it's a brand or whatever
That's
it might
a good
be?
question. So recently, just with looking back into cutting, like I mentioned, he's 22 years old, so he's no young buck, but he actually is pretty. His body is very well kept, because they never showed him when he was younger. So he's 22, but he has a body of a 12-year-old. But when I work him really hard, I just came across these, and you'll probably know exactly what they are because you're more in the industry than I am, but they're called back on track boots.
Oh yeah.
And they're like the quick wraps. And I love them because he gets super stocked up when he's in a stall. So I just slap those babies on after we've had a really hard day of working.
Yeah.
And man, they have been a lifesaver for him, because otherwise, like I said, he gets super stocked up. His legs look like tree trunks when he's just staying in a stall. So those have been I think the thing that I've kind of gravitated or never thought I was going to use, but now that I have them, I'm like, man, these are amazing. So I would say those.
Oh yeah, those are great, especially for older horses. Yeah, and like keeping a 22-year-old, fit to compete and to use is like they still, those seniors have so much to offer still, and so that's really cool that like that's your show horse right now.
I know.
An older guy.
It was just so unexpected, and I think that's been the coolest thing about this whole experience is that, and also just to see the enjoyment that he's having.
Sure.
Because that's honestly the reason why I keep showing on him, is because his demeanor. So before we found out that he could actually still show, he was out in pasture, and he was proud cut. And so he's around all the mares, and he has this nasty, nasty attitude. And once he started getting used again, that attitude just went away. Like, he's become the most docile, like level-headed, not steady horse. And it's just been so cool to watch his demeanor change going through this whole process.
That is very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's special.
And I love that. And, like kind of switching gears back to your social media, you're sharing about your horses and your life and your family. And you have 2 little boys, right?
Yeah.
And that you're kind of raising in this lifestyle too. And it's such a neat thing to share that with people around the world, like we talked about. But when your social media really kind of took off, what was that like for you? Was that like a surprise? Was it kind of daunting or intimidating? Can you talk us through that journey?
I know. I don't know. Like I don't think like I know it sounds like very weird, but people come up to you when you're out at a fair or if we're at church or and they say like, oh my gosh, I love following you. And it's just, for me, I don't really look at the number so much. Like the number doesn't really matter to me. I appreciate all the followers that have taken the leap to follow and that are truly dedicated and loyal. But for me, I mean, when I first started this, I had 300 followers. They were basically just high school friends in my family.
Right,
And
right.
so when I decided to do social media, my main goal was to get to 10,000 followers so that I could start linking things.
Right, exactly.
Like that was like my aspiration. That was like as high as I wanted to go. I was like, if I could just get to 10,000, I'll be golden.
Yep.
But then when it just kept going, it was kind of surreal. And I kind of have this, I don't want to say like self-doubt, but I always I'm like, why do people want to follow? It's just kind of like, I mean, I'm flattered by it, but I don't see anything special about me, which is like such horrible self-talk. But I'm just like, I just don't see anything special about our life. You know, this is just our life. We're just living, and I'm just randomly showing things, 3 minutes at a time on stories or whatever it is. And so I kind of get this, like, I don't know if you want to call it imposter syndrome, but I feel very humbled that people are there, that they're so connected. And I feel very, I feel very like unworthy of it, but I appreciate it so much. Like I constantly look at it. I'm just like, what an incredible place this has gone from having 300 followers to wherever it is now, to just have that kind of a platform that people can get on and they can learn and they can have fun and they can laugh. And there's so many things that I think that people get from following on social media, or that I hope that they get anyways.
Oh, absolutely. And I hear what you said, and I can empathize, but I think like people, they really do go to your page, to laugh, and they learn, and there's like a little something for everybody with like, cause you do some really cool Western fashion stuff, and
Thank you.
it is just, you mentioned Yellowstone. Like I think Yellowstone kind of, a lot of people were like, I can't believe anybody would actually live like that,
Right.
And they then social media kind of grew at the same time, it feels like, really,
Yes.
the reels and everything like that. And so you're really giving this snapshot into the industry, into the way of life, and I think it's very cool, and I think you are very worthy of it. So
Oh, well, thank
but
you. Thanks.
I understand that like imposter syndrome thing. It's a
Yeah.
interesting feeling, but
Yeah, it is. It's like, I mean, the having the platform is like, it is very, I think people just want to disconnect from the world. And when they get on, I hope that's what they're looking for, is just something to kind of take their mind, because there's so much just crap happening in the world. And so I feel like when they get onto social media and log in and then they, go to my page, I do hope that they can just disconnect for even if it's for 2 minutes, like just to have that laugh, to have that smile, and then, have to go back to everyday life. I hope that there's a little bit of a break for them when they do go to watch whatever I'm sharing for the day.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is like a little escape.
Yeah, an escape. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So what's next, for you and your family, and like, are you going to continue your cutting journey, do you think at some point you'll maybe like, when Lookin retires, get a younger cutting horse, or you guys, what's next for the Wiens family?
Oh man, I'm like, what's next in the next 5 minutes? That's where I'm
Right.
at right now. But yeah, me and Lookin are gonna ride out the rest of this year and we'll see where that puts us. We'll see how he's feeling next year. He'll be 23 at that point. So, I mean, if his body is still in good condition, then we'll keep going. I have considered and thought about selling my horse and getting a younger cutting horse. We'll have to see what that looks like. But long-term goals, Travis and we eventually want to get to Oklahoma. I don't know, Colorado is, we were born and raised here. Travis was born in Denver. I was born in Fort Collins. And Colorado has changed so much over the past couple of years. I'd say over the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's just crazy. And that's amazing for Colorado. But Travis and we have We're kind of like more hometown, kind of like smaller town feel. So our big time, like big dream goal would be to get to Oklahoma and start our own operation there. But for right now, we're just going to stay at the ranch, help where we can, and that's what we're going to do right now.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
so where can folks follow along with you? Like what are your, handles on social media? Do you have a website where people can learn more about you and your family and
Sure.
just kind of follow along with your journey?
Yeah, so my Instagram is allison.wiens, and then we have a website. It's wiensranch.com, where if you want to go, we have specifics about other cuttings we'll be hosting next year. That's where you can find like our beef stuff, order beef from the website. But yeah, that's what it is.
Awesome. Yeah. So, if you're listening and you want to learn more, go check those pages out and that website. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Allison, and we're really excited, that you're able to join today and kind of get to know behind the scenes, right, of
Yeah.
the person that we see on social media. So, thank you so much for being here and for sharing with us and sharing your life with all of us
Thank
on
you.
social media.
Oh, thanks, Devin. I appreciate you asking me to come on.
Absolutely. Yeah. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks, Allison. This episode is brought to you by My New Horse. Visit mynewhorse.com.
Thank you guys for tuning into the Ride podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and please be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow Horse and Rider Magazine on social media and find us at horseandrider.com to see all the cool things that we're up to. And if you have any comments or questions, please be sure to hit us up at horseandrider@equinenetwork.com. We want to hear from you guys. And if you like what you're listening to, please be sure to leave us a review on iTunes.